Hello and welcome to the Matchbook English Greyhound Derby podcast. Yes, indeed, we are back, myself and the Master PL, because, well, I think it's safe to say the English Greyhound Derby sort of got into full stride at the weekend. We had two wonderful nights, 16 heats, and of course, some exceptional performances. Anything up to this point has been a bit sort of wham bam, thank you, ma'am. But now all of a sudden, PL, it starts to become a game of chess. And there is a potential king or queen out there, and they're going to be running at 40 odd kilometers per hour. And I think it's safe to say after our second round that Bocco's Diamond has probably showed the world that he still remains the greyhound to beat. Wonderful 2 nights of racing, but Bocco's Diamond was something special.
Yeah, he was, wasn't he? I think there was an element of confidence behind him as well, in that he'd probably not been 100%, a bit, maybe a little bit rushed, not quite 100% fit going into the juvenile. We were all a bit shocked that he got beat because he doesn't get beat too many times, and then it was a strange kind of effort from maybe Clifford Gorham in the first round where he smashed out and he had to get round him. And people said, he didn't really beat him that far, but he showed his true mettle, didn't he, in the second round? And I think Graham Holland was quoted as saying, you don't win derbies in the first and second round, and Graham Holland knows how to train a derby winner.
Yeah, well, we'll get to Graham Holland in a minute because his team are purring. Obviously, they had great numbers in the first round, but it was the second round in a sense where you just got the feeling, oh, I know what he's doing here. He's left a bit of room for these dogs to improve into. And all of a sudden, the big three again, his big three, Bocco's Bombay Pat, and of course, Cheap Sandwiches, all obliging for the second week running. That can't happen this week, of course. We're going to get to that because Cheap Sandwiches and Bocco's Diamond are drawn against each other. But it looks pretty ominous. Like, he's won 6 derbies, 4 in Ireland, 2 in the UK. And by all accounts, he's probably no bigger than even money to probably win a third or to win a third English Greyhound Derby, just judging by his team. We'll take a look at the two nights going forward, but again, it is a concern for all involved that Bocco's Diamond has started to bare his teeth. It probably came at just the right time, PL, because there was one or two people starting to stick their head out of the pulpit and make crazy claims that Bocco's Diamond won't win a toast, or he's not the same and whatnot, and Shelburne Park is his place and it's a speed track. And listen, you do 2880 around or 2880 odd around Shelburne Park for 550 yards, you'll win at any track on the planet. And Bocco's Diamond, even as good as he was the other night, I know I put it up on X and said, I think he'll go faster.
What, faster than 28:51?
I think he'll do 3 lengths faster this week. Now, that's 3 Irish lengths, 28:30. That's my prediction.
He actually, he just broke with the. I know he did a 3:93, but that's the 3:93 is only the brute early pace. He hasn't actually got a quicker way yet. So, you could be right. And he's just a joy to watch. He's just such a fast greyhound. And it was all over once he broke with the field last Saturday. And as I say, I know there was a lot of confidence behind him to do that. And he can only go forward, surely. And it is scary, but he is such a special greyhound.
Yeah, someone put up an X the other day about, a lot of wide seats are going through. What if he gets trap 3 in the final? And I felt like saying to them, take a look at his semi-final run to Shelburne Park. That's from trap 3, the single greatest canine performance I've ever seen. Certainly the most perfect canine performance I've ever seen. I don't think there's any worry once dogs are going straight to the corner. And with the head-ons, PL, which is it's been a great initiative in the Derby over the last number of years, something that you've been hugely involved in, of course, with the Derby lanes through the years. There's not an awful lot of dogs moving off a true line. Maybe the Senon dog on the inside moving to the middle, but largely most dogs are keeping a straight enough line.
Yeah, one of the dogs I did actually notice that was moving off, and I've done a fair bit of work on even looking at the side-ons, but the head-ons as well, because sometimes the head-ons can kind of exaggerate certain viewing of races. But Solomio was a dog that I said to you when we were talking about before the first looking at anti-post dogs. Obviously, you always look at Peter Cronin. He's got such a good record of getting the dog to a Derby final. You always look at the Kirby runners, and Solomio, kind of fits that bill. And I said to you, I didn't think he was that tight a railer on a bend particularly, it can get away with an inside draw. But I think once you get deeper, this dog actually from 3 in the second round, he moved off from 3. He actually
Mm.
hit the Ginger's dog going at the first bend, at the 6th dog. So if it was me, he probably would have had a middle on him. But as I say, I've got an opinion about this and an opinion about that, and that's only because I want to see dogs running straight lines. And I listened to what Graham said about Bocco's Diamond, where he thinks he's happier with that draw on the outside because the gap between the traps in the middle isn't as good. And I think it was that learning process as well, where he's just taking his time. Graham gave him 2 trials after all as well before the juvenile. So Toaster takes a lot of knowing sometimes. And as I say, when you've got trainers like Graham Holland, they know what they're doing. And he's kind of getting him used to that sort of wide draw. If you were drawing dogs and you put cheap sandwiches and boccos in the same trial, should we say, or the same race, whatever you were doing, you draw them as they were in 5 and in 6. So
Mhm.
that's good. But in my opinion, that's kind of half leaving it to chance to a certain extent. And that was why I probably wanted him middle. But I get why he seeded wide. I've got no issue with that. I had a quick conversation actually with JK on Saturday about, because I was on the seeding panel when he said, "Oh, you wanted 36 changes one year or something like that." But that's only because I think once you get dogs drawn near to where they want to be, Ian, it just makes for cleaner racing, and then the dogs have got a better chance to qualify. But I get that when you look at Australia, there's no seed in Australia, and I understand that you can get dogs moving up, as you said with Soleil Sennen, as I mentioned with Solo Mio. There's quite a few of them. Even Fay Point Harvey, he'll edge off. But I think sometimes that's all part and parcel of trying to assess a greyhound race. So I've kind of, as I've got older, probably in the last few years as well, I'm sort of mellowing it to a certain extent and just use that. You don't have to play in every race. Bookmakers have to price at every race, but punters don't have to play in every race. So yeah, it just makes it all interesting. But I think the fact that we've got Bocco's Diamond versus Cheap Sandwiches as well in the third round of the Derby just makes it that even more special.
Yeah, someone asked me the other day. I think that's the way I'd have them as well, 5 and 6. If you look at Bocco's Diamond the other day, the head on, and the head on that they're showing, it actually cuts off just before they start to turn.
Yeah, it
It's
does.
quite a short head on. Bocco's Diamond went a bullet straight. Like, I mean, bullet straight from trap 6. And
Yeah,
then as they cut off, he's starting to cut in across the corner. May have well learned from his opening round experience, but again, I think he'll go bullet straight from most boxes. And I think it's similar enough with Cheap Sandwiches. He doesn't look like he's veering off a true line or anything like it. He's a proper trap 6 runner, certainly for the first 50 or 60 yards, where they, you'd assume that they will have gone clear on those on their inside, bar they make an error at traps, and hopefully it won't be a big issue. We'll get into a little recap now of just the 2 nights. Before we do, it was up there in the bottom of the screen, of course, Pod 50. If you are signing up for Matchbook again, bet £50, get £50 back as a free bet. And there is the code Pod 50. Don't forget to check out matchbook.com, check out Matchbook Insights, and of course, like and subscribe us on all social media platforms. And that'll give you the best coverage of, obviously Greyhound racing with myself and PL here, looking at the English Greyhound Derby, also all the top horse racing meetings, unbelievable soccer coverage, and of course the NFL coverage a little bit later in the year. We look forward to that. Now let's get back to our recap of the second round action in Toaster. Friday night's action, PL, the track was definitely running, I'm going to say, about 3 lengths slower, 24, 25 spots. That's the way I saw it. And I think for that reason, you can certainly highlight the run of Balnabola Joe, a dog that you have attempted to call the Fawn Flash. I'm not having it. I'm not having a PL. I'll take the White Flash. I'm not having the Fawn Flash. I'd be more likely to go with the Blonde Bombshell or something like that. I know it's a blonde, it's a dog, but I'm not mad about the Fawn Flash. I'm not sure I'm going to adopt that one, but I can see where you're going. All I know is he was flashy, and he got the better of his rivals. The Laddie Dar ran a big race in second spot. He's only beaten a length and a half. It was a bit messy in behind them. I really liked the way the Laddie Dar ran around those opening 2 bends. He took a little bit of schmozzling and whatnot. As we've said, and I have said it in the past, Probably not as sharp as he once was. Made an idiot of me in the first round, but now it starts getting serious. And if he leads around the corner again in this derby, I'd be somewhat surprised. But he can certainly go all the way to the final because he is running so strong. But he had no match for Balnabola Joe, who on first round clock certainly was as fast as anything to the third bend. And I would suggest if you take in the difference in the track from Friday and Saturday, I'd say maybe only one or two went faster than to him. Of course, Bocco's Diamond was probably one of them, but Balnabola Joe is looking every inch a potential English Derby challenger.
He is, and he's another one that I think he's doing it with brute early pace. It's not, he's getting okay breaks. It's not like he's breaking clear of his fields, and he actually has had some decent opposition. So, with Deladida, I fancy Deladida might get a bit closer to him. Because I always thought that Teddy might be moving off on him as well. And he kind of, as you say, probably just got that little bit of intimidation. So there won't be masses between them. And I've got them close in the betting, but I just favour Joe. He's a dog I really like. I think as he gets used to Toaster, he might just stay that little bit better. And that's all he needs to do, because I think you mentioned before about when we were talking about the Irish Derby and Bocco's Diamond, the fact that he's doing such good clocks to that third bend, that is the place to be. You want to be out in front. And then, he just seems like he's kind of coasting home on the running. It's about, I would say, 500 meters would be about his limit, but there's no reason why, because of his age, he just can't stay that little bit better as the competition progresses. And, again, what a man he's got at the end of the lead.
You got to say though, even though in the slower conditions on the Friday, he's still good 2.5 lengths faster than anything else on the card. So it's it tells its own story, and it's the laddie that closing the gap. So he's probably not as you like. He's not collapsing. He's getting to the line, but it's just a case of the laddie that closed the gap so much quicker, because obviously he's such a stronger greyhound, but also just the fact that it was just that 2 or 3 lengths slower than the following night, it probably makes a difference to him. Of the other winners on Friday night, it was mainly Saturday we nearly need to focus on. Some of the UK contingent dogs that you want to come to the fore came to the fore. March on Freddie. I made him a nap. He was 8-11, but he was around the even money on the exchange, which, if you're on Matchbook Exchange like that, I thought that was gift. Now, I really did. I thought he was the best bet of the night on the Friday, and it was over from early. Slaker Sennen got loose. Once he mastered Slick Sentinel, that was it. March on Freddie was always going to win. He came through to win by almost 2 lengths in 28.94. Romeo Tomcat just sent out a little reminder to people, I'm a greyhound. Don't forget about me. I think he's a real prospect for the future. Droopy's Bookham ran so well for Tom Hilbron. Again, a dog I thought so much of in his early career. Now with Tom, I think the change of scenery is probably working wonders for him. And I think Toaster's just waking him up again. I think we're going to see a serious Droopy's Bookham for the remainder of the year. Churchfield Sid, nothing more needs to be said. He's just the most unbelievable greyhound. What a star he's been. And they were the best English trained runners.
He does deserve a mention. He is just incredible. He hasn't had that many. I think he's had 42 races, something like that. I think 124 of them, something of that ilk. So it's a better than 1 in 2 strike rate. But his early pace is to die for. He's a good trapper anyway. He seems to be a good timer of the start. But once his feet hit the ground, geez, he's got some early, and he's another one. He will move across into the middle of the track as well. And I've been amazed by him, because his kind of age puts you off. But when you actually look at because he's had a couple of injuries, he's not had a lot of racing, so he's still a relatively active class dog, and he got to the final last year. So.
Yeah, I know. It's just he's a joy. I'd say he's just the most joyous dog. Imagine arriving down every morning to get and see him in the kennel. You'd be just delighted with yourself. Tiffield Tarkin, we didn't mention, gave me an absolutely terrible start to the night because I laid him. I didn't read. I thought there was too much made of his previous run. He flashed out, did everything right that night. I didn't think he'd lead again. In fairness, he was headed, but came again at the third bend. But it all got very tight in behind, and sort of things fell in his favor. He's a dog I will be taking on going forward at Tiffield Tarkin, just because I think now that these tests will start to get tougher, that I just be keeping them just I'd be keeping. I'd be going the other way rather than keeping him on side. Fate Point Susie won. Of course, she has a litter of pups, and then the other Irish winner was Dynamic Force. Fate Point Susie, like just anything she achieves now is a bonus. Like she has litter of pups at home, or litter of a pup, should I say, at home.
One
And
pup, yeah.
Dynamic Force is a greyhound we thought an awful of last year. He ran well to score. Hello Diego is just not doing enough early, but absolutely hammered home to grab third. We lost a couple of biggish names, but nothing too surprising, shall we say. But then it all sort of kicked off in the Saturday night, and Ireland had runners in 6 heats, and they won all 6 of those heats. I think the one thing you do notice about the Irish Challenge is at this point now, we're after losing a few, it's whatever's left is really good, really talented. And even the likes of a Ballymac Tibet, who's a massive, massive price, and he'll be a massive price in this heat next week. He's shown his quality. He won't be a greyhound till he really gets a trip, but
Yeah.
he's a danger to dogs that are still there. Like, the likes of Proper ARS, who he knocked out in the previous round. If you're third down the back straight and if it's something like a Ballymac Tibet on your heels in fourth, you're in trouble because he's going to hammer home. But let's get into the heat winners. Solomio and Bubbly Charger, both very inexperienced, both Kirby finalists, did everything right. Bubbly Charger from 4. Funnily enough, in the tipping competition, the only dog I didn't go for. And what did we say here last week? I'm going to take on Barefoot on Fire at the prices. And I end up tipping him just for tipping purposes. But Bubbly Charger popped out, did everything right, a 401. Solomio, very similar, 409, led early, very comfortable winner. And then they were flanked by the likes of Bombay, Pat, Sing Along Molly, Bocco's Diamond, and of course, ending proceedings with Chief Sandwiches. The 2 English trained runners were Droopy's Trade and Keefel Maverick. I really like Droopy's Trade. I think he's really turned into a serious greyhound. Keefel Maverick, we know all about him. He's just been a star, one of the great British breds over the last couple of years. But it was an unbelievable night's racing. Is there anything you want to specifically focus on, PL?
No, you've said it all.
Yeah. Sing Along Molly, we do have to mention, because it was wonderful to read Khan and Lofty, seeing Lofty nearly crying on TV. Like, she really did spank the bookmakers. They went for a touch and they got their touch.
Yeah, I think she was 3-1 earlier in the week, and you couldn't get anywhere near that at the off.
You could scarcely get 11-10 at the off.
She was hammered, and she came out the boxes better than she had the previous week. She had no look at Toaster before the first round, because she'd run in the 600 Shelburne, and she just improved, and she did kind of what you expected her to do, really, and she was impressive enough. So she's another greyhound. She's going to keep running through the line, and she's she's a greyhound that's got a bit of class, and she can keep qualifying.
Yeah, it's now down to 8 heats. We're down to the last 48. There's none of this 2-night stuff. Will be coming on a Saturday night. And if you look at the last 2 weeks, Thursday in the opening round was the slowest night. Friday quickened up. Saturday was bouncing. This week, Friday was slower than the Saturday. We're now into Saturdays through the Derby. It'll be in perfect condition, and it's going to start suiting those front runners, those dogs that can get off the front. Now, you still need to be running to the line because there are so many strong greyhounds in it, but things are starting to get serious. Obviously, we do now have a really solid favourite at the head of the market. He was already solid. He was already a shorter price favourite I can ever remember, Bocco's Diamond. But when the prices go up, we'll see that Bocco's Diamond is firmly established as the one to beat. There's no real value with him, I suppose, unless someone was generous and offered you a little bit bigger than what is it, 3.9. I didn't think he'd be that big. I genuinely didn't think he'd be that big. Chief Sandwiches and Bombay Pat are sort of next in with the laddie da. Droopy's Plunge, who we actually never mentioned, running on very strongly. He's progress dog. I'm not sure I'd be backing him at that sort of price, nor March on Freddie. I'd be more interested in the Balnabola Joe, a dog that can front off. Barntick Bear, who's just run into a bit of traffic. He's a dog that the better the company, the better he will be. Romeo.
Correct.
That. I'm interested to see what price Droopy's Trade is. I'd imagine he's a little bit lower, probably around a similar enough price, 46. I think there's a bit of value there. Same with Solomio, Romeo Empire, more of the strong running types. Anything that's just after saying to you, you could do worse than have a little nibble on me.
Yeah, I agree with Droopy's Trade. He was a dog that, again, I marked off. He ran in the Trilly Juvenile. He looks a nice dog. Another dog you think 500 meters will just about be his limit, but he's got a nice early dash. And I think I've had one bet so far for the third round, and that's him. So yeah, you might want to nibble. You might be able to get a bit of 50s or something like that, but 46 isn't terrible, is it? So yeah, maybe. And I have actually had a little bit of a nibble on him as well. So I just thought that he was slightly too big, and I do fancy that he'll lead in his third round heat, and therefore qualify for the next round.
What price did you nibble him at?
60.
Oh no, what price did you nibble him for the heat?
5-2.
Wow. Now to 120 buck, I made him 6-4, and I think that's perfectly fair. I think he's a great draw.
Exactly what I've got.
As I said to you, I was willing to take on Tiffield Tarquin, and he was stuck in at 6-4 and 7-4 in places. I had him bigger than that. And I think Hello Diego, there is a big run bubbling under the surface, but he's going to need to take that flyer. He is capable of going up faster than he has done. Now, he does tend to throw away a bit of ground, but he'll be absolutely hammering home. And if Droopy's trade fronts off, I can't see Tiffield Tarquin picking him up. But I could potentially, if Hello Diego managed to find a way to turn sort of that 3 or 4 lengths closer than he has been doing, maybe getting there in the final stride. But I mean, it could well be the final stride. Droopy's trade strikes to me as the type of greyhound where that 5-2 could look absolutely colossal on Saturday night, because I went 6-4. It would be no surprise to me if it was 11-10 tonight.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It was completely utterly wrong, and I had to take advantage of it, I suppose. But yeah, you're right. I think he's already been nibbled at as well. I think probably biggest is it'd be less than 2-1 now. But
I can't believe you snuck in that little bit of 60 though. That was a little.
Yeah. Well, every now and again, that's what I'm saying. Sometimes they're there, and you had to take advantage. And this is what we keep saying. You've got these different opportunities. You've got the fixed odds. You've got the matchbook exchanges. You've got the tote. There are all different ways to get, as you say, taking on dogs, laying. But that's all about opinions. You've made your book. I've made my book. A right pair of know-it-alls, apparently. And 6-4.
I read that too. I read, especially Fortin.
6-4. 6-4 is the same price as I've got him. I just think he's got a fantastic chance to lead. Teddy is one of those. With those head-ons, there are traits in dogs that you can look at as well. I've got Teddy moving off start. I've got Dynamic Force moving off start. I've got Vega moving off start. And they're the things that those head-ons just give you that little bit of an advantage. So when the lids rise, you just got to be careful of a dog stepping to the right, leaving the boxes, or indeed stepping to the left. So
thanks, Jeff.
Yeah.
In fairness to Robert Sanders, they know their hounds. Okay. Compliments always gratefully received. I like that response. See, the gas thing is, PL, I'm not even know-all anymore. I have a teenage daughter. So, I have to concede. I have to concede that she knows all nowadays. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. But listen, all you can do is, we've been doing this a number of years now, and you can just offer your opinion. And that's all we do it for, is to offer our opinions. Our view on races is probably 80%, 90% of the time it's very, very similar, but every now and again we'll have a disagreement, and that's the beauty of it. And it does spark opinion. I love listening to other people's opinions.
The fact of the matter is, PL, and I'm not defending our stance, but we probably have about 90 years experience between us as regards this sport. Now, obviously 60 or 70 of them are yours, but as someone says, there's no, you can't beat experience. You can't beat experience. Let's get into the third round, because I think we agree that the market has sort of found its right place now. Most of the dogs are in a similar enough, are in the right positions as to where they should be. There's no obvious risks, shall we say?
No, I don't think so. As I say, that you can kind of keep looking at that caught my eye. After the first round, I had to be with Banner Bowler Joe. I'd already backed him pre-comp, and then I went in again. So it's just that when dogs take your eye, and you have to again have that price in your head of what they should be versus what they actually are, and then you have to try and take advantage of that. And that's, again, beauty of the exchange here. I've just had a couple of little nibbles um, with dogs that I thought were wrong, and I have to say, on the Matchbook Exchange, someone wanted to take on Bocco's Diamond, and I pussyfooted around. I should have took the lot of it, and I only took a little bit of it. He was 4 point, I think he was 4.6. I think he was that,
Yeah.
and now is someone wants to back him at that, and he's not actually there available. So,
Mm.
so yeah, that again, it's that judgment call, isn't it? You have to quickly assess how do I now price this up, Ian? What are the chances? And after you saw that,
Well, if let's say if you had taken a chunk of that 4.6, if he traps on terms next Saturday night, all of a sudden next week you could lay him at 3.6 and only lay him for half your stake, right? So you have half your stake to win.
yeah,
Like you half your stake basically at 7-1. You know that sort of way. So I can see why people would take those prices at this stage, because you're now trading rather than backing. Because
yeah.
if he traps on terms on Saturday night, there is absolutely no way in hell he's going to be 3.9 this time next week, because the odds are we'll be talking about the new track record holder who is starting to find form.
And he actually might be, it could, as you said, at some stage, it could be around about a 2-1. So he could be 3.1, 3.2 to late. Do you know what I mean? He could be,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
if he does what you think he's going to do, then the bookmakers are going to put their crash helmets on and button up and say no more.
yeah.
So then it will only be the exchange where you're going to get any semblance of value.
You said
Um,
something there about Balnabula Joe as regards the first round. You'd had him back beforehand, right? So you had already arrived on your opinion of Balnabula Joe, which many people would have done. Now the firms can't probably react as quick as you can in terms of they see one run. They're already 2 weeks behind you. They're not going to cut him to the price where they think he's going to be. As a result, the exchanges follow the firms in many point of view, and then people go in and go, well, that's 16-1 with the firms. I'll go 18 or 20 on the
yeah,
exchange. And it leaves that door open that if you're 2 weeks ahead of the curve, all of a sudden you're getting the value. And as you say, it would be irresponsible of you not to take that little bit of a bigger price than he should be, because you know that if he does things right again the next night, they're suddenly going to realize, oh, hang on, that first round effort wasn't a fluke. And we have been too big a price about this Greyhound. And that's what you have to do. You have to try and get ahead of the curve rather than, just betting,
yeah.
blinkered view. You got to look at them, and we've touched on it last week and the week before, that you're finding the dogs in the upward curve. That's not a situation where you could do that with the established performers. This is for dogs that have lightly enough raced. And what you should be doing basically before the first round of the Derby is highlighting every single dog that has less than 10 races. Just keep an extra keen eye on them. And all it
Yeah.
takes is that 1-2 seconds into the back straight where he starts to show a bit of foot, or he's after passing that dog who's a Group 1, a Category 1 proven performer. And he's after taking a length off him from there to there. If he improves the start by a length, all of a sudden he could be going 4 lengths faster at the end. So that's the type of dog you're looking for when you're looking at these anti-post bets. Obviously, we're talking about an established performer very much at the head of the affairs. Bocco's Diamond. You can't be any more established. A Derby champion, one of the greats we've ever seen. But as you said, the likes of the Solomio, Bubbly Charger, Droopy's Trade, Romeo Tomcat, that type of dog, so much improvement still potentially to come.
Yeah, the younger dogs, and that's, you're right, 100% right, in that you're looking for a dog that's got that little bit of X factor, a little bit of potential, because there's always going to be a new dog, a new kid on the block arriving, and it's where is he, and how good is he, and you can only do that by watching, and as I say, I've been a keen follower of a lot of the unraced stakes in Ireland, and I've just got this soft spot. I bought a really nice dog from Tralee in the old days, and he called Broken T-Bone, and he did as a, he broke a track record. He won as a scurry, and those speedy dogs. I always look for a lot of early pace, but kind of as I've got into the Derby, and the Derby now has gone from Wimbledon to Toaster, you kind of eyeing, you need a dog that's going to stay a little bit as well. So it's always good to look at these unraced stakes in Ireland where you can spot a potential superstar. And let's get it right, Graham Box and his pals spotted an unraced stake
Yeah.
in Kilkenny, Bocco's Diamond. So they're there.
And as I've said to him on many occasions, he wasn't the dog I was taking out that night. There was 3 or 4 dogs I'd have taken before him that night. And
I agree with you. I've gone back. Actually, literally yesterday, I went back and watched him again. I watched him in Kilkenny and I've watched him in Cork and how he improved through Cork. And that was obviously Graham Holland's genius getting him to improve so much. It was genius. The whole lot of them, they should take great credit for it because he is a dog that
no,
me,
I
you, and
do
all the
think they
people
were aided
watching
out.
this.
I think it was aided by them, that the fact that he was born and bred and started to be trained about 500 yards down the road in Golden by Rachel Wheeler, and I
Rachel,
think she had been in their ear saying, by the way, this is a proper greyhound. So it does help, but again, I didn't see as much on that first night as clearly the likes of Graham Box and Bev and Austin did, but it was some decision.
Yeah, it was. And I think so. Going back to your kind of point, in that's what I think sometimes you need to be doing. I just think that I'm not saying Bannabola Joe is the next Bocco's Diamond, but he might not be too far behind him. And at the price that I backed him at, I'm quite happy to take that chance. And I think, as I say, the Matchbook Exchange gives you that opportunity to do that as well, Ian. So just gives you all those opportunities.
Do you know what other opportunities gives you? Gives
Go
you
on.
opportunity to back and lay in every Greyhound market through the day
Exactly.
and through the week, including the second round or the third round of the Star Sports TRT English Greyhound Derby. And we have 8 cracking heats to look forward to. Let's glance through them, PL. There's no point in going too deep into them if we have no real strong thoughts. The opening heat, I saw Racket Hall Brute was sort of installed favourite. I'd like to be taking him on. I don't think he has the early speed. I thought Sunnyside Broxy had a kind draw. If I got a bit of 9-2, 5-1 about him, I would have been tempted. Any shorter than that, I think I'd leave him alone. I don't think it's a race I'll get too involved in unless prices go right.
No, one of the things I actually agree with you there, Sunnyside Broxy, probably would be more of a place bet for me as a safe bet and probably a small win bet. I happen to think that Slick Sentinel might just move in a little bit. So New in Benny, Slick Sentinel, they're the 2 dogs with the early speed in this race. They might just be drawn the wrong way around. I think I spoke to Keith actually after the draw, and he was happy for Slick Sentinel. He thinks that Slick Sentinel breaks better out of 6, but he's going to have to because he's going to have to clear New in Benny straight away because I just think that they may clash. So I thought the safe way of that race, with no strong opinion, because I'm quite a fan of Brighty as well. I really like him. I think he's trier. Racket or Brute, the same with him. He'll keep running through the line. But I just thought Broxy might just trap and hold his pitch, and then he'll go close. I think so.
In terms of a makeup, it probably is the kindest makeup that Slick Sentinel has had in this derby. I know we won his opening round heat, but last week it was a far tougher affair with March on Freddie, and he didn't get his start. He did a 4:10 compared to 4:01. If he does his 4:01, he's probably going around in front here. He's going to take some stopping. He's the right favourite. But just as I said, at prices, if Sunnyside Broxy went too big, and it'd be one you'd be looking at, you'd be hunting up in the exchanges near the time. And again, that place market will be sort of tempting to look at him. I think I'd take him on because I think there's every chance he'll hold the likes of Righty, Racket Hull, Brute, Slick Jamie, and potentially even you and Benny into the opening corner. I think he'll be in a nice position. But Slick Sentinel could well be 3 clear at that point. Onto the second heat. And Droopy's Plunge is a dog who I've sort of been keen to take on. Obviously, I'll be taking him on here because Bombay Pat is out in trap 6. He'll be a pretty hot favourite. It is notable that Bombay Pat did 4:11 in the first round, 4 seconds last week. I'd say 4 seconds is as fast as he can go, PL, because we have stated on many an occasion that his issue is the boxes in those first 5 strides. But who's to say that maybe he hasn't just taken to Toaster, the different mechanisms? It's not as much guesswork in the UK as it is in Ireland in terms of when the box are going to open, and because they can actually see the hair here, because it opens as it's going past the hair here, whereas in Ireland the boxes have to be 45 degrees when the hair gets to the lids. Does that make sense? So listen, Bombay Pat is a very worthy favourite. I would probably suggest the Bubbly Charger is the one I'd be more concerned about if I was backing Bombay Pat, because that's his box, trap 4, just judging from last week. Glory Lord, if he's going anywhere, it's inwards. So I just thought that Bubbly Charger have a bit of room up the inside. I'd be keen probably to take on Drubby's Plunge, maybe the win and the place market. But I think Bombay Pat will be hard to beat.
I think Bombay Pat's a good thing. It's interesting you say about Bubbly Charger. If he wants that box, then why has he got a middle on him then?
Well, yeah, I suppose they weren't looking to get listen, that's to say, I think he now looks like he wants the middle.
Yeah.
We haven't seen an awful lot of him, I suppose. Like, he was unraced going into the Kirby, so he had 5 or 6 races there, and then 2 races in the UK. So he's only had 7 or 8. But yeah, I know. You're probably at a situation where you're middle, you're probably guaranteed 5 or 6 at one point. But no, it's too
I'll make a
wide
statement
here.
as well, Ian. I've looked at some of the dogs that I think are going to qualify, and I think we'll end up probably with no middles going through anyway. We could have 13 railers and 11 wides. You could get some wide runners will be getting trap 4 in the next round draw. That's what I think. Because I think a lot of the classy dogs and the better class dogs are seeded wide, and I think we'll and that happened, didn't it, in the Irish Derby final? I
Oh,
think we had
it was. I'd say it was clear from week 2 that it was going to be a
yeah,
wide seeded, dominated derby.
yeah.
It was huge, the number of wide seeds were winning in our derby, and it's not because of that dreaded word bias or anything like that. It was just
The
that's where
better
the
dogs
talent
are seeded
was.
there. Yeah.
It helps when you have the likes of Bombay Pat, Bucko's Diamond, and Cheap Sandwiches all carrying a W, like 3 of the fastest greyhounds on the planet. Yeah. So, is there a betting angle there? Is there anything at prices you'd be interested, or is Bombay Pat plenty short enough?
No, I think Bombay Pat's a bet. I think he's a
Yeah.
bet. I think he's just slight odds on, and he's a bet. No, I think he's a class dog, and I think as long as he just gets a sensible break, he'll lead and win. Plunge was slightly disappointing last time out. He edges in. Again, he's a dog that I thought he was draw dependent. I wouldn't want him any wider than 2, and I think he'll move in from 2. He'll move in at the start. Arthur Job's going to move off at the start, but the thing is, you might expect Plunge to trap in front of him, and he'll need to. And
I
you're right.
think if Plunge doesn't hold Glory Lord into the corner, he could just find himself with little enough room to maneuver around those opening 2 bends, which
Yeah,
could allow others to slip around. And I think that's an issue. If he doesn't find his trapping boots, and he can trap Drubby's Plunge, like, he is
can
quite trappy at times.
he can?
He can get himself into a decent pitch. He's still going to struggle to contain the likes of Bubbly Charger and certainly Bombay Pat into the opening corner. And he's not back running Bombay Pat. I don't think anything is if he gets loose at the head of affairs. 28.53 last week. That just tells you exactly where he is. But yeah, it's just an interesting sort of a contest. Like, the 3 you'd be picking to qualify are the even numbers. You'd be going 6-4-2, 6-2-4. That's the way you'd
Yeah,
be looking, I suppose.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Go
Glory
on.
Lord caught my eye in the first one, and he didn't. He didn't quite. He ran a bit. He was another one. He ran a bit flat in the second round. I know Craig said he'd taken him to the
You've just summed up his Irish career.
right.
One night he'd look at champion, and the following week he'd go, well, where was the run from last week? That sort of
Yeah,
way.
I know Craig said he's been to the physio. So you're hoping that maybe there might actually have been something with him that you can work on, because he's
Yeah.
definitely got gears. The dog. I do like the dog.
Oh, there's no question about that. Heat 3 is pretty hot. Obviously, you look to the outside, you see Ballinabula Joe and March on Freddie, the reigning champions there in Trap 3, Deladi Da. Barefoot on Fire, it's something I've said a few times about various greyhounds. The better the company, the better he's suited, because he does need to run at dogs rather than, you can't be expecting him to flash out and do everything right. No, better feeling is an issue for him, but if he gets away around him, it should be okay. Hope Zoompa Loompa will be a big price to get involved. It's an interesting affair, and I think you can sort of look at it in 3 or 4 different ways. If the Laddie Da was to take a good start, he just might find himself a touch closer into the back straight than he was last week, and
Yeah,
he's
I'd agree with that.
value. Although he's favoured with a couple of the firms. Ballinabula Joe maybe, and March on Freddie will attract money. I just think it could be tighter at the top of the betting that is at present. I wouldn't be surprised if it was similar enough prices. Maybe the Laddie Da and Ballinabula Joe would March on Freddie right on their heels.
That's the way I see it. Yeah, I mean, I think no better feeling than Hopes and Palumpa, obviously, of their big prices on the earlies. They've got it all to do. I think I agree with you about Deladida. I'm a little bit worried. I've had to, as Harry would say, I've had to have a brain damage bet on Banabola Joe. I love him so much, and he is now officially the form flash. And Pat said that was class, so I'm going to go with that. But I think he's got a massive chance to lead again, and then you're right, Ian. It's where does Deladida turn? March on Freddie has just been a bit. He's a bit limited at the start, isn't he? He's just not really been coming away, and then he's been doing a lot of running late. And I think the danger is if he turns behind Joe and Deladida, I don't think he's going to back run him. I honestly don't. I think he can qualify, but I don't think he's back running him.
Yeah, they're sort of disputing favoritism places, and you go to another firm or two, and it'd be interesting to see how the exchange falls closer to time, because my experience in recent times will tell you that the exchanges will generally fall with the one that's the most likely pace setter, which you'd assume is Balnabula Joe. But Deladida is a different scenario. He's a dog with, he carries a bit of weight. You know what I mean? He's been there, done that. And even Deladida rolls off the tongue. He's popular with punters. Just wouldn't be surprised now if he was to attract a little bit of interest, shall we say. We'll move on to Heat 4. And again, it's Bocco's Diamond Cheap Sandwiches. I made Bocco's Diamond. What price did I go on? I went 2-5.
So did I. Exactly.
I went 2-5, 9-4. That's how I went. And I went double figures bar, JT Craze and Droopy's book them in around the 10, 12 to 1 mark. And then any price you like, 3 and 4.
Yeah. No, I actually I was bigger cheap sandwiches actually, but I was 2-5 Bocco's Diamond, exactly that. And again, I think you could say he's a bet at 1.5, so.
Yeah. I think you're backing him at 2-5 to break within a length of cheap sandwiches. If he comes out a length behind cheap sandwiches, I think he still leads him up the inside into the opening corner, and that's that. So that's the way I sort of saw it. Yeah. Just
and they're drawn to get clear runs as well. They're drawn.
Yeah, any chance we get a bit of 1.7 on the exchange near the off.
You might. You might, but I doubt it. But the thing is with cheap sandwiches, he hasn't been flashing the lids. He's been showing early. He runs the bends to die for. I would defy you to tell me a better bend runner than cheap sandwiches, because he has been running toaster bends to die for.
His fluency around Fay Point Harvey last week was a joy. He was like scale electrics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I will say as well, Ian, he hasn't quite been coming home that hard.
Hmm.
He was actually coming back at, I don't know if you remember the Irish Derby when they turned first and second, and cheap sandwiches coming at Bocco's Diamond near the line. Yeah. You might remember that. I don't know.
I also remember the 8 hours persistent rain that day. I also remember the cold weather in November in Dublin. And I also remember Bocco's Diamond missing the kick and having to come around him and getting a slight clip on the opening corner. So,
okay.
I'm willing to take the 2 on, okay?
No, but you're right. Really, if you're going to draw him, I'd draw him that way. I would draw him that way.
Absolutely, all day long.
But I think they can turn 1-2. I mean, listen, Suleika Sennen ran really well last week.
He did,
actually 3 is his box. So I wonder whether he could play a part. I don't know.
I'll tell you one thing: he's going to have to absolutely hammer out. I mean, hammer out. He's going to have to come out faster than he has ever come out.
He is. You're not wrong.
Yeah. Well, let's get on to race 5, Heat 5. It's an interesting affair. I think I'd probably still side with Droopy's Aladdin. He was obviously an expensive enough loser the other evening, but he does plenty right, doesn't he? He's just a really nice, solid dog.
He was my biggest bet last week, and
I thought he was too big. He's available at about 11-4. I made him a 9-4 chance. I was willing to take on some of the others, like Ballymac Tibet is put in at 6 and 7-1. I made him 16. I wouldn't back him with free money. Yeah,
I'm the same. I made Aladdin 9-4, same as you, and he was actually 7-2 earlier in the week. I don't know whether he's still that. And I've got this. I haven't pulled the trigger. I haven't had the bet. I was slightly Droopy's Aladdin favourite just in front of Tomcat, but I've got this niggling doubt about Prince Nassim. I mean, Maxine hasn't had him long, and I saw the last time he ran was from Track One in Ireland, was at Waterford, and actually he stayed fairly straight. I would think he might move off from this draw, but
You
when
know
you
he's
watch,
he's an undercover agent for us, yeah. Like I was
yeah,
warned by Kim Berg, and she said, "You never mentioned my dog." Well, he's not English. He's not Irish trained. She said, he's Irish owned, and he'll be coming straight back to us. So, like, he is the undercover agent, and
right,
you could set your watch by him. Like, he's
I didn't
really
know that.
consistent. Yeah, good starter, stays strongly, does everything right, but probably lacks a couple of ounces of class that you might need. But he can certainly just do enough to get in the way.
Yeah, well, that was the thing I was going to say to you, is that in Waterford, he ran off out of red. He ran right the way off on the bends. But I actually I like him. I probably fell for him a couple of times. Just at big prices in the opening 2 rounds. But I just think he might have a say, because Aladdin's probably going to just edge in a little bit. I was actually impressed with the way when Aladdin won in the first round, he didn't dive straight the way he's in. He kind of went in, and then you could see him visibly. If you watch the head on, you can see him visibly then straighten himself up. And I was quite impressed with that, because that, if he does that here, could win him the race. But it's
With,
whether they,
with the exception of Ballymac Tibet, the only who is a big finisher. None of these are going to come from behind Drupy's Aladdin like Drupy's Bookham did. Like Drupy's Bookham is very, very
yeah, it's
strong.
fair comment.
None of
Yeah.
these, if Drupy's Aladdin gets to the front, I can only see him increasing his advantage to the third bend, bar as Romeo Tomcat in his backside, because they're quite similar in terms of their ability and their pace. But I'd be surprised if Drupy's Aladdin was picked up in this race.
Yeah, I must admit, I was that was the way I read it. In that, I thought that the two dogs that probably could be most prominent were 2 and 3, and yet Faye Point Susie's not a slouch. She could bang out. Keithel Maverick, he was another one, wasn't he? That out of 5 last week, he moved off start quite violently, and he's going to have clear daylight here, because I don't think Ballymac Tibet's really going to worry him in the early pace department. But I think, the key to this race is Prince Nassim. And in the end, I couldn't convince myself that definitely Aladdin was going to clear Nassim. And then probably by the time I'm in and R in, all the value is going to go anyway. But I was the same as you. I had him 9-4. Do I want to back him at 7-2 and then go, I knew that could happen at the start? Do you know what I mean? So it was one of those, Ian. It's one of those.
Yeah.
And I'm just not convinced, but I like the dog, and I was gobsmacked. Well, I wasn't gobsmacked when he got beat, because I thought he was beat coming out the second bend. I thought he's going to eat us up on the running, because I've just got that in my mind that Aladdin doesn't quite come home really strongly over 500, and I didn't know whether the proper heiress thing was because I thought proper heiress would have picked him up, and he didn't, and then proper heiress goes and gets knocked out by Tomcat. So it's one of those where there's a bit of relative form here, but I can't really have a strong handle on it. So I'm not a know-it-all in this race.
So after spending 5 minutes in a race, you have no real strong handle on. Thanks for that, Pia.
But I'm the same as you.
I agree with you.
I'm the same
I think he's way too big at 7-2. He's probably still too big at 5-2 in place at 11-4. Again, he is one that I could see going off at lower than 2-1. So if you want to do a bit of trading or something, maybe that's the option there. But I'd say he's more one to stick into like a small multi, dogs at sort of bigger price than they should be. And I think Drupy's Aladdin will certainly give you a run for money. If you'll know after 5 strides. If he comes away on terms, after 5 strides, you're in front and you're going to win. Simple as that. And again, I think he'll trade shorter than he is currently. And I think that's the main thing. We're here to give you an idea of where they're going to trade. One dog that I've no doubt will trade shorter than his current price is Droopy's Trade. I think he'll be a pretty warm favourite come the off of Heat 6. Great makeup. You said it, Teddy. Just steps off a little bit at boxes. Even then, Droopy's Trade should have more than enough early speed to lead up. Certainly, those nearest to him, Teddy, That's It, Jack, and Flashing Fender, even Tiffield Tarquin, like he flashed out, or it seemed to flash out in the first round, did a 4.13. Droopy's Trade would do that with his eyes closed. Now, that said, he did a 4.20 himself in the first round, but did a 4.01 the other evening. But even look at his form in Sheffield. I think this is a proper Greyhound going forward. I think he's going to continue to improve. And I'm almost encouraged by the fact that he trials so badly at Toaster. and then was a little bit more sort of fluent in his first round victory, but again, touch scratchy. But then the other night just looks a much more fluent and comfortable greyhound around Toaster. So that would suggest to me that there's still more improvement to come from him. He's obviously from an exceptional family, Droopy's Alice. She is throwing superstars, including Broadstrand Sid. And I think this Droopy's Trade dog will be a big player in major competitions going forward. The Derby may come too soon for him against the real class acts, but I'll tell you what, he's more than good enough to win this race, and I think he's going to win. And I'm going to nominate Hello Diego to chase him home in second.
Yep, that's fair comment. I actually made Diego a bit bigger than you can get, but I was a little bit disappointed with him. He kind of got took off his feet, and he just sort of plodded on late, really. But yeah, I get I'm a big fan of Flashing Fender. I keep falling for him at big prices on the exchange as well. I keep nibbling away at Flashing Fender because he's a dog that I quite like, and I think again,
but at least you're doing it at huge prices. Like he's currently about 28, 33 to 1 for the heat. Like, the dog has only had a handful of races, bred in the purple, and every single one of the litter seems to be improving with each run. So you could do much worse than throw him into the equation. But when it comes down to it, you're not going to be having chunks on him at big prices.
No. I just think he's got ability. But whether he's good enough is a different matter. But I think actually, again, like you said about Tiffield Tarquin, he's got a bit of speed about him, and Tiffield Tarquin's now got to get round him. Whereas I said Teddy's moving off, I think, for in the initial meters. I think Droopy's Trade probably is a dog that wants 2 or 3. He just wants to be off a little bit, off the fence, ideally. But in the makeup of this race, I'm happy. You base your bets on level breaks. At a break level, Droopy's Trade will lead. And
Heat 7. Heat 7 is an interesting heat because there are quite a few dogs here that I would regard as popular dogs that people like to follow in. Romeo Empire is a big talking dog. Coolio Gold, been there, done that. Vagar is a rapidly improving lady. My God, she finished at some speed the other night. She looks like she's going to be an absolute star over an easy 6 bends, even a stiffer 6 bends going forward. She'll improve considerably on her previous 6 bend form. Sing Along Molly, of course, most popular punted winner of the Derby thus far last week. Deliveroo always seems to run his race, narrowly beaten last week at a big price. I know 1 or 2 Shrewdies took a few nibbles about him. And then Fay Point Harvey, a dog who I've always been willing to take on. And yet I think he's a wonderful makeup here. If he traps like he did last week, he's a big player. I'm surprised he's not favourite, I'll be honest.
Well, he will be, but I've backed him. I just before we came in there, I backed him. He's one that I think has got a good makeup. And again, another dog is going to move off. He'll definitely edge off. But again, he's another one. He's an intelligent dog in that he'll move off and then he'll correct himself and he'll come back in. But I think it's just that brute. He's another one that starts well for Graham. He comes out, he shows early pace with it. And I think the only other dog probably that could match him to the turn is Coolio Gold. And I thought Coolio Gold actually was around about a 6 to 1 mark with a couple of firms for Maxi, and I thought he was a big price because again I actually think he's probably going to stay in a straight line out of 3. Romeo Empire's more of a staying sort of dog. Vagar's another one. Ian steps off at the start, moves off start, and that might just be an issue for Sing Along Molly in the early few meters. Again, I'm a big fan of Molly. I said to you, I backed her despite not getting the price that I should have done, but I did back her, and I did join in on the punt, as you say. But I don't really ideally like a draw, whereas I like Fay Point Harvey's draw, and I've got an opinion that I think Fay Point Harvey can make all.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think he'd be a shorter price than he's currently available at. I will have a small bet on Vagar, especially if she goes around 14, 15, 16 on the exchange. That would do me lovely. And then the last heat of the round, and again, a couple of well-known faces here, popular dogs for punters, the likes of Barntick Bear and Churchfield Sid, but they're taking on some decent types. Solomios in 3, definitely on the right side of Indian Bonnie. Obviously, that's going to happen being an inside in the middle. I think Solomio's happiest probably in around 2 or 3. I think he's got a great draw in terms of you'd expect him to lead up the top 2, and he may well get first run of the inside runners. Churchfield Sid will be hard enough to contain, however, can certainly outrun, or can certainly play a big part in proceedings. I'm not going to say outrun his odds because he's well found in the market. Solomio, though, I think is probably the right favourite. This is the type of race where I will be keeping an eye on Barntic Bear's price, because the better it gets, the better he is. He's probably going to find the gaps when he needs them, more so than he has done in the last 2 rounds. Again, just there's fewer slower dogs in his way. And I think Barntic Bear could be the value. I'm not sure I'd want 3s. I think I'd want a bit bigger. But yeah, I think he's a player. An interesting race where I'll probably bet prices.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And again, this was similar to the Droopers Aladdin race. I was toying here. I'm actually a fan of Solomio. I'm a better fan of him out of this sort of box. Do you know? Again, I'll repeat myself. I'd have stuck a middle on him. I really would have, because if he got trap 4, that won't worry him.
You know what you were saying? You know what you were saying earlier on. You were talking about him being where he drifts off a little bit and stuff like that. He's an absolute ringer for his half brother Kildare, who off the second bend in the Derby final drifted off and allowed Romeo Magic up his inside. This is the same dog. Like, I mean, they're carbon copy of each other.
Yeah, and quick. He's definitely a quick dog. But and I think, yeah, you're right. Kildare always wanted to be off the fence that little bit. He, as I say, he moved off and he moved right the way off, and he actually tangled the 6. And I saw that live. If you know what I mean? I actually commented on it live because I was big on Solomio in his heat, and he was well gambled, and he did the business. But I've just gone back and watched it. It's almost like, Churchfield Sid, and I've said this quite a lot about compartmentalizing dogs, where so that A plus B equals C. But I really do not underestimate Churchfield Sid. This dog is going to play a big part in Solomio's sort of continuation throughout the Derby, because there could be a bit of a tussle. The third dog to be aware of is Dynamic Force, and I've got him stepping off at the start. So if Sid doesn't flash and clear Dynamic Force immediately, they could hit each other, which then is going to play into Solomio's hands. And you're right about Barntic Bear. He could get a lovely run through here, because Solomio, Dynamic Force, and Churchfield Sid all want to lead to win.
Same with Indian Bonnie. Like, if
Barntic
Bear negotiates away comfortably around Fabulous Sneak, let's say before the second bend, he's going to be charging into that third bend with 2 or 3 dogs who have not got to the front where they want to be, retreating, and all of a sudden he gets that gap at the third bend. That's the key to this race. If Barntic Bear gets through at the third bend, because if he does, doesn't matter what's in front, he'll be close to them.
But I've got a theory here. I actually think that Fabulous Sonique is far too big on the early price. It's far too big. I think she's actually a runner here. I think she's got a good makeup, because I think she could outstart Barntic Bear. Now she's got the rails to herself, and then he's got to negotiate a path around her. So where is he going to do that? Barntic Bear, I'm a big fan of. I love the owners. I love the dog. I love Patrick. He's just one of those where he kind of makes mistakes, doesn't he, at certain stages of races, as you say, because he's meeting dogs probably going into that third bend. This race is going to be kind for him, because I don't think 3, 4, 5, and 6 can all lead, and they need to. So, yeah, I think good things can happen for 1 and 2 here, actually. So that's why, again, I held back from playing. But the more I look at Churchfield Sid, the bigger of a fan I get. And it seems ridiculous to say that, because he got to a Derby final last year. And I know they've had a lot of heartache. There's a lot of stories that go with him. You can see Billy's passion as well when he gets interviewed about the dog. They love him to bits. They just love him to bits. It's great to see.
That's it, PL. 8 heats done, talked about. So much for this being a nice short podcast. Nearly an hour later, you're still talking. Listen, it's all down to you, not me. A pleasure as always. We look forward to talking again next week. We're going to be down to the last 24. Hard to believe we started with nearly 170 runners, and here we are talking about the 48 who are going to become 24 at the weekend. It really is starting to bubble up. The place is looking great. Toaster has been a great home for it this year. It's been some cracking racing and only better to come. It really starting to come to boil at just the right time. You're enjoying the commentary?
Yeah, loving it. Yeah, we've got the commentary box sorted out now as well. So it's you're right. It's getting there. It's getting there.
Yeah.
Can only improve. So yeah, it's exciting times.
All roads lead to June 14th. That's it, though, from us on Matchbook. Don't forget to sign up. Pod 50, bet 50, get 50 back as a free bet. And of course, check out Matchbook Insights. Also, like and subscribe wherever you are watching this. Again, it helps the algorithm and it gets you more quality expertise. I'm not just talking about myself and PL, of course, but when it comes down to it, if you're watching a Greyhound Racing podcast, you're clearly interested in it. But that's it from us this week as we come up to 2 seconds before the hour. Good luck. We'll see you in 7 days' time.